I started writing music when I got to college. I had grown up in a very musical family. My parents played classical music all over the house all the time, and I had piano lessons. But when I got to be a teenager, I fell in love with Ella Fitzgerald and Dave Brubeck and all kinds of jazz people. And it didn't occur to me to compose until I went to Sarah Lawrence College, where they had a very liberal attitude and said that people could compose even if they hadn't had all the background in theory. So I took composition and improvisation there, and that's where I started thinking about being a composer, I think. I came to all the jazz clubs and heard everybody play. And I also went to regular concerts. I remember going to a birthday concert of Elliott Carter when I think he was something like 40 or 50. I mean, he was very young considering how long he lived. And that was an amazing experience for me. I was really taken in by his music. But yeah, I came down to the city a lot from Sarah Lawrence. I had music lessons in the city with Ursula Oppen's mother, Edith Oppens, piano lessons. I knew Helen Carter and also Sylvia Babbitt, who were the wives of Babbitt and Milton Babbitt and Elliott Carter, who were working to promote their music and connecting us young composers with them, and we got to know them and felt they were mentors for us, for sure. Sometimes I write poetry on the subway, or I can write poetry any place, and it starts on paper and then gets onto the computer so I can see it visually and read it. And I read it out loud to myself. A lot of my music begins at the piano, with improvisations at the piano. And then I'm working with them somewhat on a program, Sibelius, which a lot of us use, to manipulate them, and you get to hear it back, of course, at different speeds, and you can manipulate things around, change them upside down, change the volume, change the articulation, and it just makes it wonderful to be able to add a voice, take a voice away. I don't perform in public now, but I used to. When I was at Columbia, we had Columbia composers, and we all played each other's music, so I was playing my own music and music of other composers at that point. And I have played in chamber music groups for various teaching jobs that I've had where they required me to play. And I enjoy it, but I don't really play in public very much now. Well, I've had performances where the rehearsal was fine, and then the performance, someone got lost, or they played it much, much slower. And it's hard because you talk to people afterward, and you don't want to, you feel like you have to explain it wasn't quite what it was supposed to be, but you don't want to do that because the performers have worked hard on it. But I don't think I could think of a time where I didn't feel like the general gist of my music was there. You know, I could certainly say I've had a lot better performances and less good ones. And depending on the audiences, you know, I have felt like sometimes it's been better received and not as well received. But I couldn't describe a major catastrophe, I don't think. I think there's a certain kind of music that seems to be very much in vogue now. And I want to know how I would exactly describe it. I think overall music used to be more complex, and now a lot of the music that you hear on new music at the typical venues is a lot simpler. I mean, I think people want it to be more comprehensible. And the audiences are different. But on the other hand, it used to be in New York, I remember, that you would have the uptown composers and the downtown composers. And nobody went to the other place. I mean, you either were an uptown or a downtown. And now there's been a certain infusion of European music, a lot more electronic music, and certainly I feel that there are venues all over the city and groups of audiences and listeners who are interested in all of it, and I like that. I mean, I like that there are some pockets of certain kinds of styles that have stayed around and others that are coming along that have changed the overall scene. But I think it's a little bit more accessible now than it used to be, and definitely mixing in popular music more. That's, I think, definitely.